The Egyptian president rejects Palestinian displacement from Gaza. The Indian Army targets terror camps in Operation Sindoor. And Pakistan vows retaliation from India's cross-border strikes. Welcome back, and now the news in detail. It's Salma Al-Fi'i. The Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has stated that Egypt is making intensive efforts to enhance security and stability, aiming for a ceasefire in Gaza. This came during his meeting with the Greek president in Athens. El-Sisi reiterated Egypt's refusal to displace Palestinians from Gaza and emphasized the strong historical ties with Greece, highlighting opportunities for cooperation and joint efforts on illegal immigration. The Greek president has stated that signing the joint declaration on the strategic partnership between Egypt and Greece reflects the unique historical relationship between the two countries. During his meeting with the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Athens, the Greek president emphasized the excellent ties based on historical friendship and international cooperation, noting that Egypt plays a crucial role in maintaining peace in the Mediterranean and the Middle East. In a press conference with the Greek Prime Minister in Athens, the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi emphasized the commitment to enhancing the strategic partnership between Egypt and Greece. He highlighted Greece's significant role at the European level and underscored Egypt's respect for diversity, minorities, and freedoms. The Egyptian president also announced the signing of a strategic partnership declaration with Greece, focusing on expanding areas of joint cooperation between the two nations. On the ongoing situation in Gaza, the president stressed the importance of resuming the ceasefire agreement, increasing humanitarian aid to the region, and rejecting any attempts to forcibly displace Palestinians. He also called for efforts to secure the release of detainees in Gaza. In a joint press conference with the Egyptian president, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has reaffirmed the unwavering partnership between the two countries despite ongoing global challenges. The Prime Minister praised Egypt's role in facilitating a ceasefire in Gaza and stressed the importance of a two-state solution for regional stability. He also highlighted Egypt's pivotal role in Gaza's reconstruction, emphasized the need for maritime security, and revealed plans to address freedom of navigation at the UN Security Council. The Greek leader reaffirmed support for a unified Syria as essential for peace in the region. And now we move on to the latest developments in India and Pakistan. The Indian Armed Forces has announced that they launched a targeted operation against what they described as terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan proper and in Pakistani-controlled Jammu and Kashmir, ensuring no Pakistani military installations were hit. They specifically targeted 9 sites in Operation Sindoor, executing precise strikes on what they claim were terrorist camps. The Indian Army emphasized that its actions were calculated and not escalatory. In response, the Pakistani military confirmed that India struck 3 locations with missiles, vowing to retaliate at their chosen time and place. Pakistan accused India of targeting civilian infrastructure and claims to have shot down 5 Indian aircrafts. The Pakistani military also shelled border areas along the line of control in the disputed Kashmir region, causing damages and casualties in Indian-controlled areas. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has stated that the Pakistani military is responding to Indian attacks, asserting the country's right to retaliate. In a post on X, he condemned India's strikes on 5 locations, promising a strong response. He emphasized national unity and high morale among the Pakistani people and military. Pakistani officials also reported that the Air Force shot down 2 Indian fighter jets. Pakistan's military has announced it would retaliate against India's cross-border strikes that resulted in the deaths of at least 26 civilians, choosing the time, place and means for their response. Pakistan's military spokesman condemned India's actions as unprovoked and blatant aggression.
Indians attacked last night, unprovoked, the blatant aggression that they did.
The 4th largest airline in India, SpiceJet, has announced the closure of airports in northern India due to the current situation. An Indian police official confirmed ongoing shelling along the line of control in the disputed Kashmir region. India's National Security Advisor informed U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio about India's strikes against Pakistan, clarifying that the operations targeted only terrorist camps and avoided civilian or military installations. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has led a high-level meeting with key cabinet ministers in New Delhi. That came following a series of airstrikes launched against Pakistan. The Indian Foreign Secretary has stated that its attacks on Pakistan and Kashmir were intended to preempt and deter further cross-border assaults, particularly after the killings of tourists in Kashmir last month. He explained that intelligence indicated impending attacks, making preemptive strikes necessary. He noted that Pakistan had not taken significant action against terrorist infrastructure in its territory.
They focused on dismantling the terrorist infrastructure and disabling terrorists likely to be sent across to India. It was deemed essential that the perpetrators and planners of the 22nd April attack be brought to justice.
Egypt has stated that it's deeply concerned about the ongoing situation between India and Pakistan, which recently experienced artillery exchanges resulting in casualties. Egypt's foreign ministry affirmed in a statement that the country emphasizes the need for all efforts to achieve de-escalation and prevent further regional escalation. The statement added that Egypt urges both nations to exercise maximum restraint, promote dialogue through diplomatic channels, and seek peaceful solutions to fulfill the aspirations of both peoples for tranquility and stability. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has stated that Washington is closely monitoring the situation between India and Pakistan. Rubio emphasized his commitment to facilitating a peaceful resolution. That comes as the U.S. President Donald Trump described the strikes between the two nations as shameful.
If we need to, but I'll never discuss it.
And I hope their campaign is about to apologize for what Joe Biden just said. We are not garbage. We are patriots who love America. And thank you for running, Mr. President.
Russia has voiced deep concern over the rising tensions between India and Pakistan following the Pahalgam terror attack. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Maria Zakharova, condemned terrorism in all its forms and stressed the importance of global unity to combat this threat effectively. China has urged both India and Pakistan to exercise restraint and prioritize peace and stability amid escalating military tensions. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson stated that China is closely monitoring the situation and advised Chinese citizens to refrain from traveling to areas near the conflict zone.
对目前事态的发展感到担忧。印度和巴基斯坦。
Japan's chief government spokesperson has expressed the country's deep concern regarding the potential escalation of tensions between India and Pakistan. Japanese cabinet secretary warned that the incident could provoke retaliation and lead to a full-scale military conflict. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has stated that the world cannot afford a military confrontation between India and Pakistan. That came following India's military strikes against its neighbor, which promised retaliation. Guterres expressed deep concern over the current escalation and urged both nations to exercise maximum military restraint.
Contributions to the work of the United Nations, not least UN peacekeeping. And so it pains me to see relations reaching a boiling point.
And for more analysis, we now move to Rihem Morsi in our newsroom. Hello, Rihem.
Hello, Sama. Thank you. And to help us unpack the current unfolding situation, we're joined from New Delhi by the distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, Manoj Joshi. Welcome to Qnews, sir. Sir, let's start off by asking, what are the primary motivations behind India's Operation Sindoor, and isn't New Delhi risking war by taking such a course of action?
Well, you are familiar with the recent terror attack in Pahalgam in Kashmir, and India has suffered at the hands of terrorism which has originated in Pakistan for the last 3 decades. First it was Punjab, then it became Kashmir, and there have been terrorism in other parts of the country. And you may be familiar with the infamous Mumbai attack of 2008, when hotels were attacked by Pakistani militants who came by sea to attack India. So this is in keeping with that kind of a tradition where innocent tourists were gunned down in this valley. And for this reason, India had to do something. As I said, for 3 decades, this has been going on. And India has been left with very few choices. They have tried dialogue, they have tried all kinds of negotiations. In 2016, we invited the Pakistanis to investigate an alleged attack. But we have heard nothing about their investigation since then. So they keep on saying that there must be joint investigation. But the perpetrator and the victim cannot investigate together.
Yes, well, sir, the Pakistani Prime Minister described the Indian strikes as an act of war and vowed to retaliate. Can you anticipate the size and scale of the expected retaliation? And do you think that this is going to go out into full-scale war?
No, I didn't get that.
The Pakistani Prime Minister described the Indian strikes as an act of war and vowed to retaliate. Now, this is an escalation, meaning that this could become a full-scale war. What are your expectations when it comes to the retaliation from the Pakistani side, and do you expect things to further escalate?
Well, that the Indian side has been very clear that our attacks have been on terrorists and terrorist infrastructure, not on Pakistani military. Now, the question is, I know that Pakistan will retaliate. There is a certain logic in Pakistani action, and the Pakistanis will retaliate. Now, the question is, what will they attack? There is no terrorist infrastructure in India. So that is the problem. And if they attack military facilities in India, you can be sure that India will carry out a second round of attacks, and we will enter into a escalatory situation, which will be extremely dangerous.
Yes, it becomes very volatile. But do you believe that global powers like the US, Russia, and China haven't really taken any serious diplomatic initiatives so far to diffuse the tensions, given how things are escalating quite quickly?
You see, the UN Security Council, I know, has condemned terrorism and terrorist violence and said that people must be brought to justice. The question is that we still do not have an answer as to how they will be brought to justice and who will bring them to justice. There is not even a definition of terrorism in the United Nations. So nations are forced to act on their own. They have to protect their own interests. And that is what India is doing. And as I said, that all this has been happening for the last 30, 35 years, meaning all my life, I've been a former journalist. I have been covering terrorism. The first thing I covered as a journalist was terrorism in Punjab. And I'm still commenting on it today.
Well, so you talked about the UN, which is a global body at the end of the day, but there are other players, like key players, like the US, Russia and China. Do you think that they could play some sort of efforts to diffuse the situation and the tension so far?
Certainly. Meaning, I hope that even Egypt and Saudi Arabia, UAE, United States, China should play a role. But the point is that their role should not be simply to say, don't do this, don't escalate, but they should come out with some solution.
Yes, mediate basically. Mediate between the two parties. Is that what you
pardon?
You mean to mediate between the two parties and find some sort of action that is a middle?
There is no mediation because the point is we are talking about a terrorist attack. Where is the mediation? What will you say? Don't kill these people. These people kill those people. Meaning, how do you mediate in this situation?
Okay, my final question here is the clashes between India and Pakistan have caused a significant toll on civilian casualties and damages to civilian infrastructure on both sides. How do you assess the humanitarian repercussions of this severe escalation?
Well, I definitely think that Pakistan maintaining a terrorist infrastructure is the primary cause of all this. And if that can be dismantled, and that should be dismantled with the help of the international community, 5 years ago, there was the process of the Financial Action Task Force. As a result of that, Pakistan convicted several people, but only for terror financing, not terrorism. But that was when the international community came down on them, they actually agreed to act. And I think even today, if the international community comes down on them, they will act.
Okay, from New Delhi, that was our distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, Manoj Joshi. Thank you for joining us here on Qnews, sir. Now back to you, Salma, in our studio.
Thank you, Rihan. And now we move on to the latest developments in Gaza. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa has declared the Gaza Strip a famine zone. In a press conference on Gaza's worsening humanitarian crisis, Mustafa urged the UN to treat Gaza as a famine zone and activate its mechanisms. He called for the implementation of the UN resolutions banning the use of starvation as a weapon of war and for urgent action from all UN member states to address the crisis. Mustafa vowed that the government would continue its efforts to combat aggression and famine while working with the international community to save lives and aid recovery. U.S. President Donald Trump has confirmed that he does not plan to visit Israel as part of his upcoming trip to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. While the White House had not officially confirmed any plans for a visit to Israel, rumors had circulated within diplomatic and national security circles that Trump might extend his trip to include the U.S. ally. Trump's remarks put those speculations to rest, with no further details provided on the reasons for excluding Israel from the itinerary.
The Houthis but they didn't want any more, and I understand that. And they have decided that they don't want to do this anymore. That he is something. Steve?
U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce has announced the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has decided to merge the Office of Palestinian Affairs with other sections of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. The move effectively reinstates the framework from President Trump's first term, where all U.S. diplomatic activities in Israel were unified under the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Ambassador Mike Huckabee will oversee the implementation of this merger in the coming weeks. Bruce reaffirmed the United States' commitment to its historic relationship with Israel, emphasizing its continued support for Israel's security and efforts to achieve peace in the region.
To its historic relationship with Israel, bolstering Israel's security and securing peace to create a better life for the entire region.
The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Gaza, Pedro Agudo, has revealed that around 2.1 million people in the Gaza Strip are facing a severe water crisis, with nearly 70% of the area's water infrastructure destroyed by Israeli military operations. Agudo called the destruction of water systems a silent but deadly bomb, as many residents now have access to either limited or contaminated water, endangering their health. Agudo emphasized that the deliberate destruction of water infrastructure is effectively using water as a weapon in the conflict, leaving residents with just 5 liters of water per day, far below the necessary amount for basic survival. Displaced Palestinians shifted through the rubble of Abu Hamisa School in Gaza's El Bureij a day after 2 Israeli airstrikes hit the building, which had been converted into a shelter. The attack killed at least 33 people, including women and children, according to local health authorities. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, addressing the escalation, announced plans for an intensified offensive potentially involving full control of Gaza and humanitarian aid routes, following approval by his security cabinet. And once a park for leisure, Gaza City's unknown Soldier Square is now a crowded tent camp for displaced Palestinians, reflecting the deepening humanitarian crisis in the war-torn enclave. The former green space, once marked by a large statue of a soldier, now shelters families who live with over 40 relatives in a single tent and relies on mobile community kitchens to survive. According to the UN Humanitarian Office, the OCHA, since Israel imposed a full blockade in March, no food aid has entered Gaza, leaving over 2 million people facing severe shortages. Gaza's worsening humanitarian crisis has claimed the life of a 4-month-old Janan al-Skafi, as doctors cited severe malnutrition and the lack of medical supplies caused by Israel's total blockade of the enclave. Janan, who suffered from chronic digestive issues, could not access the hypoallergenic formula needed for survival. Her doctor at the Rantisi hospital said she lost nearly half her body weight before succumbing to infection. The Gaza Health Ministry reported at least 57 deaths from malnutrition since the closure, and mostly children. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin, and here's what we've been covering. The Egyptian president rejects Palestinian displacement from Gaza. The Indian Army targets terror camps in Operation Sindoor. And Pakistan vows retaliation for India's cross-border strikes. And this concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EG to stay informed. And thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.